The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is Tuesday. So excited to be here with you today. We have a very big show and I want to kind of get to things because we have two interviews happening this morning very early on that are really important to me. So I want to remind all of you that we will be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about topics having to do with autism from a 360-degree perspective. Everything under the sun, what it's like to be a person on the autism spectrum and what it's like to have a child on the autism spectrum, what it's like to figure out the funding, to get help, support, all of those things. But remember, this entire show is meant to be interactive. We encourage you to write into us and tell us your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, topics that you'd like for us to cover. Emily is going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us here. I'm going to remind you that the only place to watch us live right now is www.autism-live.com. When you go to that site, the show plays 24 hours a day, 7 days a week there. So no matter where you are, when you are, if you want to catch up on something happening here, all you have to do is go to that site. But we are live 10 hours of the week. That's Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon. That's Pacific time. So if you're on the East Coast, that would be 1 to 3, and then you can do the math for all the other time zones around the world. Anytime you tune in, you have the opportunity now, because we're leaving it open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to write in questions. And when we're live, we have the opportunity to respond to you in real time, which is a very cool feature. That is at no cost. You don't have to log in. We're not storing your email address. We're not asking for a credit card. This is about giving information, the back and forth. I always like to remind everybody at the start of the show that I am here not because I'm an expert in autism, because I'm not. And I freely admit that and want for you to know that. I am here because I'm an autism parent, and my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He's about to be 10. I know that for a lot of you, that's a blip on the autism radar, right? There are many people out there who are pioneers who've spent much more time at this than I have, and I welcome your conversation and your knowledge, right? And then there are some of you who are newly diagnosed, and then there's everything in between, right? So I'm passionate like you are about making sure that we all get the information that we need. That's why I'm here. And then we bring in other parents and individuals who are on the spectrum and experts for you guys to interact with. And I hope that you will. That's really when this is the most fun, is when you guys are talking to us and saying, hey, here's what I need to know. Here's what I need some help with. And we're here to make sure that you have an outlet for that, right? Even if it's just you want to say, I am ticked today. My ticket is torn and I need to tell somebody, right? Let us know. I fully love when we every once in a while, you got to have an opportunity to vent, right? All right. So we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it, because let's face it, the jargon is intensive on this journey, and sometimes you just want to go, really? Can somebody just talk to me in a language that I understand about what's happening? You know, but I got to be honest with you, it's really important that we make friends with the jargon at some point. Probably not during our IEP meeting, right? Not at the time when our child is having a tantrum. But if we take it a little bit every day, then eventually we get to the point where we begin to understand these things. All right. Our term today, and I'm told this is the first time we have done this, although we talk about this endlessly on the show. Our term today is joint attention. Now, don't go thinking all kinds of things, right? Don't go there. Let's look at our actual definition first. Joint attention, the process by which one alerts another to a stimulus via nonverbal means such as gazing or pointing. Okay, it's not the worst definition, but this is one of those definitions that's the entire reason why we do this, because when you look these things up, you go, all right, I get all the words here, I get what they mean, but really, what does this translate into? How does this have any effect on my life? Let's look at our working definition. Working definition is the ability to share attention with another person toward an object, person, or event. All right. So we talk about all the time this triangle of attention, and we know that kids who are typically developing, and I hate that phrase, but what else are we going to use? Typical development. They're very early on, a very young baby will look at something and then they'll look at their parents to see if their parents are looking at the thing, and they will, kind of do a reading of their face. So, for instance, let's say that a baby is looking at the dog. Baby has no idea whether a dog is something to be afraid of or something to love, right? So baby's looking at the dog, and baby sees that mom's having a reaction. Baby looks at mom. Mom is going, oh, look at the cute doggy. It's such a cute doggy, right? Baby looks back at the dog. There's a triangle of attention here. There's the baby, the mom, and the dog. And the baby and the mom are looking at each other and then looking at the dog. And it's a conversation that's happening about the dog, and information is being transferred about the dog to the baby. Really, one of those first little niches in social skill development. Noticing what somebody else is thinking and inferring what they're thinking and feeling about that thing. But it starts with joint attention. And it's something that we frequently have to work to get with our kids on the autism spectrum. That they don't just automatically do it. I don't know why. I don't even know that our experts know why. But we do know we can teach it. And we know when we teach it, it's one of those little building block things that when you put it in, that everything else starts to work, or sometimes a lot of other things start to work. Really super duper important. But stop and consider. If you're not making eye contact, and if you don't find people reinforcing only things, you're going to bypass this step. You're just totally going to step over it and go past it. But imagine if you teach this, and there's not a point at which it's too late to teach. If you have an 18-year-old and you begin to teach joint attention, you will notice that other social skills will get better as a result of it. But we need to get into thinking about how do we teach this, and there are some great lessons out there that you can do with ABA, and we'll talk more about that probably later on today. But joint attention, having a triangle of attention. The person looks to another person, and then they both look at the object, the person, or the event, and they're looking back at each other. It is a non-vocal conversation. Very, very important. So if somebody's saying your child is not engaging in joint attention, okay, well, good to know. That the fact of the matter is, if your child's on the spectrum, that's probably true at some point, but it's teachable. All right, we always have a question of the day for you. Our question today is, what social skills do you need to work on? Now notice, yesterday I said to you, what is your strongest social skill? And today I'm asking you, what social skills do you need to work on? I know that those of you who are parents are going to want to write in and tell us what your child needs to work on. And if you want to do that, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that later on this week. But today we're asking, what social skills do you need to work on? My list is lengthy. I mentioned yesterday that I can start a conversation with anybody. I just can't finish it. I don't know how to end a conversation. I don't know how to say something in a short amount of words, to my great detriment as a parent. And also somebody who's supposed to be keeping time on a live show. And I have too many words to say things. Even now. So I need to be working on those kinds of things, but I'll be honest with you, the biggest thing that I need to work on, and it's true of a lot of people, listening. listening, still quality, good listening, because I know how to make it look like I'm listening. I'm just keeping it real here. And I know how to listen while my brain is doing 38 other things, right? But being really still and really listening, I'm working on it, but I'm telling you, it's not the easiest thing for me. I need to get constant reinforcement for doing it because it's still really, I joke, but I'm serious. It's very, very difficult for me, and something that I know would enrich my life greatly, especially as a parent, if I engage in more still, active listening. Still and active. You can be those things together. Okay, moving right along. We always have a topic of the day. Our topic this entire week, can you guess what it is? Yes, it's social skills. This is really important, and I deliberately put this week because I know we're gearing up. Last week we talked about summer plans, and a lot of what we all have admitted that we need to work on during summer is social skills. It's a great opportunity to work on social skills because the schedule is a little bit different and you got a little leeway, can throw things in. So we're really nuts and bolts talking about social skills this week and how we can improve our social skills and how we can improve if we're working with a child on the spectrum or a teenager on the spectrum or an adult on the spectrum, how we can get in there and tweak. And please know that my feeling on this, we talked about perspective taking yesterday, and I think that as important as it is to teach perspective taking to individuals on the spectrum, it is as, if not more important, for all of us to be taking perspective about what it's like to be on the spectrum. And that not having this presumption that they need to change to how we are. And in the arena of social skills, I personally, as a parent, you can write in and tell me what you think, but it is not that I want my child to be like every other child, but I don't want my child to be unable, to be disabled from doing things that he wants to do. And if that means that he needs to know, the rules for this are to do X, Y, and Z, then I want him to know what the rules are. Then he can color outside the lines all he wants to. What I get upset about is in a moment when he wants to make contact with a neurotypical kid and he can't because he doesn't understand what the rules are to engage with that child. The other child isn't understanding what his rules are, but that child is not motivated to know what my son's rules are. I'd like that to change, but until it does, I want to front load my child so that he understands and then he can make his own choices, right? And not be frustrated. So that's where I'm coming from with social skills. But you can write to me and tell me if you're on a different page with that. Some of the different things that we have going on here today, because we do have a very exciting day. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to be joined by a wonderful blogger dad, Scott LeRette, is going to be with us. And I don't want to mangle the name. It's Austintistic. Austintistic is the name of his blog. Really incredible blog. I encourage you all to check that out. Then, right after his interview, we're going to be joined via Skype by the Phillips family. You saw their Mission Possible video yesterday for the first time. They have 2 children who were diagnosed on the spectrum who are both doing remarkably well. And we're going to join mom and dad, Kerrie and Tom. Want to make sure I get the names right. And they're going to be with us at the bottom of the hour. And then at the top of the next hour, Evelyn Gould is back. At least that's what I've been told. I haven't seen her yet today, but Evelyn Gould will be back with us for Making Room with Evelyn. She is a board-certified behavior analyst and has extensive experience not only working with individuals on the autism spectrum, but also working with parents to help them to cope with all the pressure and stress and considerations that come along when you're working with a child on the autism spectrum. Excuse me. There aren't enough services for our kids and our young adults, but there really aren't a lot of people that include the parents in the equation and the rest of the family, but Evelyn does, and so we're thrilled to have her with us. So all of that and more, and we're taking your questions live on the live feature at www.autism-live.com. Join us now. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have guest blogger Scott LeRette, Austintistic. You'll love it. Stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy. get wild. Let's 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 get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman with Taka. My
Hi.
guest here,
I am Jennifer Lucero with Taka.
Taka Mom is here in the house. Jeff saw on a TV commercial, they were making calzones, and he looked at me and goes, Mom, please make me that. Wait a minute, yeah, calzone, you can't have calzone. He goes, well, you make me pizza. Why don't we call it a puzzone? So we're going to do this ode to Jeff puzzone. So I'm going to have Jen come on in.
All right.
You're in charge.
Ready.
We're going to add a little grapeseed oil, garlic, cut up chicken, finely cut up onion, and we're going to throw a little bit of basil. So we're going to just take about 5 minutes or so, saute up the chicken and all of the onions together. While Jen is slaving away at the stove, I'm going to make the pizza crust. A lot of gluten-free choices that you have out there for pizza crust. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the dry. Again, I'm using eggs. There are a lot of egg replacers on the Taka website. We have about a dozen different ways to replace eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and add my shortening. Calls for a little extra salt, which I'm going to put in here. And also add a little pepper. And we also have herbs de Provence that gives the crust a nice Italian flavor. Can't forget the apple cider vinegar, organic stuff, ready to go. Yes, I have all my ingredients. We're ready to rock with this mixer. And don't be afraid of dough. Dough doesn't bite. So here's what we'll be working with to make the puzzone. I'm ready to go. Let's get this party started. So what we're going to do next is roll out the dough. I like to be rolling in the dough, but we're going to roll out the dough instead. So let's go ahead and get started here with that. So again, you see me using the parchment paper all the time. Love this stuff. It's basically unbleached, ready to go. It's just going to make life a lot easier on your rolling pin. You don't need to coat it or anything, which is a lot easier. But I swear I should buy that by the gross ton. So the puzzones, this basically makes 2 big puzzones. I'm going to take half of the dough and roll it out. Half of the other dough will be for the other puzzone that we're going to make in just a little bit. So you want to do, you're not making a pie crust, you're kind of making a long oval shape. So we're going to try to make a shape where I'm going to basically roll this over with all the yummy fillings. And so any combination or variation thereof. This sauce, just real simple, is organic crushed tomatoes. I've added a little bit of salt and pepper and herbs de Provence in that as well, which I love. I like extra fresh basil. That's always yummy to have on your puzzone. And thank you. This turned out fantastic. So we're just basically building it the way that we want to eat it. Of course, my favorite rice-free, organic, dairy-free, soy-free cheese. It's going to pop off the sides.
Okay.
I'm not afraid of popping out the sides. So that's the beauty of the parchment paper. Once you're done, you just flip it over and peel it back. So I'm just taking a fork now and going around the edges. It looks so pretty.
It looks really nice.
So for 400 degrees, we're going to go for about 25 minutes. You want it golden brown. And because we cooked everything pretty much already, you're not worried about not having everything fully cooked. So look how cute those look.
Looks great.
Like those 4 happy people right there. This weighs a ton. So let's go to the magic oven. Pull out our finished product. And voila!
Good.
Oh my gosh,
looks
this
beautiful.
is so yummy. There's nothing better than a little Jeff Ackerman puzzone.
Yeah.
And this is going to be nuclear hot, but we'll go ahead and cut it open so you can. Oh my gosh, this is going to taste so good
That
later
looks
on
great.
for your kids.
Yum.
Feedback, keep it coming. Thank you for helping, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us. Come back to Autism Live. We'll keep doing allergy-friendly cooking classes. If you have any suggestions or things that you would like to see us make, bring it on. You can reach us at autismlive@gmail.com or Facebook.
Love the Facebook.
I know, too much for me. Facebook, so facebook.com/autismlive, or thousands of taco recipes ready to go. Basically go to Taco Now, TACANOW.org. And we'll see you next time.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest joining us via Skype is Scott LeRette. He is a dad of a son who is on the autism spectrum, and he is a blogger, and he is also an author of a book that we're going to be talking about briefly. So, Scott, are you there?
I am. Good afternoon. Good morning, I guess.
Well, because it's both, right? Because you're in the middle of the United States, correct?
Right. Central Time. I'm in Iowa.
Okay, very cool. And we're so thrilled to have you on the show. It's our first time having you on. And your blog is called Austintistic. Why is that the name of it?
Well, it was just my own. Well, if you step back, I started writing in little notebooks, more of a release for me, not knowing anything about writing a book or thinking about writing a book. And Austin, of course, that's his name. And among other things, he has autism, and I came up with Austintistic, and that just kind of stuck, and that's evolved. The name of the book's going to be something different, but that's how it started.
Okay. And so, and Emily's going to put the address for people to go and read the blog, because it's really a lovely blog. I have to say, I spent some time on your site the last couple of days, and there's something about when autism dads speak that is just especially moving to me. I don't know whether it's because there are few of you who speak out, or you're just a remarkable group of people. But I love the subtitle on your blog, which is An Ordinary Man with an Extraordinary Son. It's beautiful.
It kind of fits.
Well, I would argue that it doesn't fit, because I think that from what you write, you're an extraordinary dad. So how old is Austin now?
Austin is 18.
Wow. And when was he diagnosed?
I want to say it was later than most are today, I would say. He was around 10 or 11.
Wow.
And part of that was, I think probably was a lot of denial on my part for many years, when my wife was much further ahead of me on that, in that thinking. She'd read an article in Time magazine and had said, this is what he has. And I just kind of ran from the room and didn't really want to listen.
And you've mentioned during the break, right before we went live, you mentioned that he's incredibly social. Tell us about how autism presents in him and what his strengths are.
Well, it is unique, and I always say that we're blessed because our autistic son is both verbal and social. And to a fault, though, he takes things to extremes. In Austin's life, there's no gray area. It's very much high or low, crashing highs or soaring highs, or just really mellow lows or very sober lows. So there's nothing really in between, and he's very much a presence. He does have seizures, and he can crash like that and just turn into where he'll sleep for, if it happens in the afternoon, he'll sleep till the next morning. But he's very much a presence, and you won't forget him if you meet him, because he's extremely gregarious and very loving. If he met you, he would want to hug you. He would want to invite you to spend the night.
That's awesome.
And I wrote a story about Austin once where he became fast friends with what ended up being the commander of Stratcom, which he was like the fourth most powerful man in the world at the time. He was a general. And he asked him to spend the night one night. We were at a party and we met him. And he almost did. But
that's got to be a little awkward from time to time.
You know what? Actually, that's a good point. And for the longest time, I think my wife and I both, I was so concerned about what he would say, because he would walk up to anybody. And it's evolved, though, too, over time. And I've just really let it go. Yes, he may say some things, but it's not worth it, because we used to be where I would be diligently monitoring him and worrying. And we kind of got over that a few years ago.
Now, I noticed that recently you had a blog about Austin going to the prom. It was a beautiful, beautiful blog with some great pictures.
Right.
And just really interesting insights about what it was like for him and what it was like for you, and when things would go wrong that you felt like it might be the end of it. I'm curious, he had this gorgeous date. Is this a friend of his or somebody that he has a love interest with?
Well, it's Jessie. She said Austin needs to go to prom, and she asked him to prom.
Okay.
She's an incredible girl. She wants to be a neurosurgeon.
Okay.
She graduated just last weekend, and it was perfect. I wish I could show a picture of the two of them because anyway, they had a great time, and that story was really neat. And I had over 16,000 people read it overnight, which was just a huge response. And I think that's because it was such a nice story, but also there were the beautiful pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. I love because they were in a beautiful car, and there's a gorgeous picture at the end of them driving away to prom, sort of, the sun setting and them driving away from you, which I think is just beautifully symbolic of at the point that it sounds like you're at. He's 18 and he's kind of driving away.
Right, and he's still got a year of school left. He'd ended up, we kept him back 1 year because of I think it was some of the bone breaks, maybe because he's broken his back twice, and I think that was one of those times where he missed a lot of school. So he should be a senior, but he'll be a senior next year. And
the bone breaks and have to do with things other than autism, we should say, that he has some other issues that are going on for him medically.
Right, it's called osteogenesis imperfecta. It's a brittle bone disease, and he hasn't broken every single bone in his body, but he's broken fingers, toes, tibias, fibulas, humerus, ribs, nose.
Wow.
He's broken his back twice, his sternum, his coccyx. So he's broken what feels like every bone in his body.
Wow. And so now next year when he graduates, do you have a plan? Does he have a plan? Does he know what he wants to do?
I knew you were going to ask me that. And that's the one thing over the last year we've really been struggling with. We feel that at some point we will probably move with him to an area, a metro area, somewhere where there'll be more services. And, I'm learning of more of these places that kids like Austin can go to as young adults because, as you probably are well aware, the unemployment rate of, young adult autistic people is extremely high.
Yeah.
And
higher than 90%. I mean,
right.
It's almost like you can't get higher.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I've learned, though, just this year, I've really come to this realization is that I think with someone with autism or other special needs as well, I think what you need to do is key in on what they're good at and what they love and desire and really go after that. He wants to be a chef. He loves to cook,
right.
And he loves music. So I think those are avenues that we need to push Austin towards.
Love it.
To do in life.
Love it. So we should also mention, too, and we did briefly mention that this blog, which is very popular, has snowballed into you actually writing a book. What is the title of the book?
Well, it looks like the title is going to be The Unbreakable Boy.
Love it.
And it actually is more appropriate because Austentistic, although I think I really loved finding that word and trademarking that word and everything like that because it's such, just a play on words and I really like it. But it's not really, it doesn't really get to what the book is. And The Unbreakable Boy, I think, is a better analogy, a better, whatever you want to call it, to what the story is because it's much more than autism. And, it's a story of faith. That's probably one of the pillars of what the story is about. But there's also the love story of my wife and I, how it took us 18 years to really get to know each other. And because we had other things bigger on our plate and because of the way that we met, there's addiction, there's special needs, there's struggle and pain, but then there's triumph too, and there's enlightenment.
Well, I can't wait to read it. And you have a brand new Facebook page for the book, The Unbreakable Boy. And if we go to that Facebook page and like it, will we get updates about when we can actually get the book?
Oh, it'll be on all of the sites. And I think if you go there right now, I'm the only one that's liked it because I haven't put it out yet.
It's brand new. So our viewers can be the next group of people to go and like The Unbreakable Boy. Fabulous. But we can, and then we'll know when the book is coming out and how to get the book.
Right, and I've also got the same name for a new website, which, again, I haven't shared that with anybody yet.
Okay.
And because the book will, it's still got a while for the book to be out there for you, but
we're
all
excited
those
to hear
updates
it.
will be on there.
And in the meantime, people can be checking out your blog and finding out more information about you and your son. I think they'll find it a very uplifting and especially we have a lot of people who have teenagers who are having seizures, and I think that your blog is a really wonderful blog to read how you positively, it's not all hearts and flowers and roses, but I think you have a really good outlook on things.
Thank you very much.
Well, Scott, we thank you so much, and please keep us posted. And when the book is out, let's make sure that we have you back on again.
Very good. Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and say hello to everybody there for us.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that was blogger Scott LeRette. Make sure that you go to Austintistic. It's a wonderful, wonderful blog. And encourage, if you're a dad or you know a dad, encourage them to read it. I think it's so important to share those resources with the dads. We're going to take a break, and in just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by the Phillips family, who has 2 children that were featured in Mission Possible yesterday, 2 children on the autism spectrum, and they're going to tell us their story. So stick with us.
I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are here at the Gluten Free Expo. We're really excited about it. Can't wait to give you a look at all the tasty things there are to try. We are here at the Breads from Anna booth. You have been helping my family for a long time. So first of all, tell us a little bit about how this came to be.
Okay, well, I was diagnosed at age 16 with type 1 diabetes, and then in my 30s I got celiac disease, and a lot of the products that existed at that point just weren't working for me. So I made my first mix, which was gluten, soy, rice, and nut-free. And then my sister was diagnosed with celiac, and she has Hashimoto's, so she can't digest lactose, and she was allergic to corn. So I made a mix for her, and I had these 2 little mixes on my website, and then the autism community started reaching out to me for a yeast-free mix. And then my nephew was diagnosed with autism. So we have stuck to really trying to make our products as free as possible of the top 8 allergens. We're free of so many of those trigger foods that they work well for these kids. And the bean flours we use are pre-soaked, so they're easier to digest.
And it tastes good. That's the most important thing. It tastes really good.
And I truly believe there's healing that happens from the pleasure that you get from eating, and I want people to feel that they're not making a sacrifice by having to be on a special diet.
Where can people get them?
There is a store locator on our website, so you can check that out. And we encourage people to ask stores to bring it in if they have a store they like to shop at that we're not in.
We are here right now at the Bob's Red Mill Natural Foods booth. You've heard me talk about them on the show before. I love them.
The 2 hot items are coconut flour and almond flour. They're just rocking because they please a lot of audiences. They've got the gluten-free. They please the paleo. They're not grain, so they can please a lot of audiences. And as far as the mixes, we're always the pizza crust, the cornbread, and then our oats are still just right up there. And we have over 100 products now that are certified gluten-free. So we're trying to please all audiences with that.
We are here at one of the most popular booths, the Udi's booth. Tell us some of the things that might be good for a GFCF diet.
Perfect. So all of our products, with the exception of the cookies and the brownie bites, are milk-free, casein-free, and they're made in separate, dedicated facilities. So basically anything here other than cookies and brownie bites is good. For kids, the granola, because it's chocolate. And then we have things like double vanilla muffins that can double as cupcakes. And if you can do like a sugar-free frosting, milk-free frosting, then it's even better.
We are here with the author of Gluten is My and a very incendiary title.
Well, when I was diagnosed with celiac 2.5 years ago, my initial reaction was, "What? Are you serious that I can no longer eat a major food group?" It blew my mind, and everywhere I looked, I found inspirational, yay, yay. And I was like, this will not do. And I instantly started my blog, Gluten is my out of like, total craziness. And it developed into a book.
The subtitle of it is Rants, Recipes, and Ridiculousness for the Gluten-Free. So a little bit of everything then, stories and recipes.
Yes, it's personal stories. It's a guide on how to get through this time in your life. It's also, there's information if your child is diagnosed, there's travel information, and there's also a chapter on the future of gluten-free and what it means for all of us that are suffering through a lack of donuts.
We are here at the Enjoy Life booth. Tell us about what Plentals are. We just tried it, and it rocked our world.
Well, Plentals are a lentil-based snack. And the great thing about Plentals is 3 of the 4 flavors are dairy-free. So there's no gluten, there's no casein. All of our products are gluten-free and free of the 8 common allergens, which means they're free of egg, dairy, wheat, soy, peanut, tree nut, fish, and shellfish.
But it's not the only product that you guys have. You have a wide range of products that you guys carry, right?
That's right. We make 38 different products. Again, everything that we make is certified gluten-free as well as free of the 8 common allergens. So the great thing about Enjoy Life is when you see the Enjoy Life red logo on any package, you know it's safe, and you know it's safe for everybody. And, a lot of people ask us, well, how do you make it taste so good? Because if it doesn't taste great, no one cares. And so we like to tell them it's a little bit of magic, it's a whole lot of love that we're able to do this and replicate all these different flavors. So, for instance, we have a brand new line of decadent bars, which are s'mores, cinnamon bun, cherry cobbler, and chocolate sun butter. And again, all free of the 8 common allergens. The other thing with all of our products, they're all verified non-GMO. So we have the most gluten-free products that are verified non-GMO by the Non-GMO Project.
For more information about a healthy, tasty, gluten-free diet, make sure to watch our cooking segment, What's Left, co-sponsored by Taka. Welcome back to Autism Live. We're just back-to-back interviews here. So thrilled because right now we have joining us via Skype. We showed their Mission Possible video yesterday. We have Kerrie and Tom Phillips. They are the parents of Torin and Kaya. Did I say those names right?
Yes.
And just loved your video yesterday. I got to see it for the first time yesterday, and it moved all of us here to tears. But I'm thrilled that we have an opportunity to talk with you guys because we'll show the Mission Possible videos, and people always have questions. So first of all, tell us a little bit about your 2 children, because it was your son who got diagnosed first, correct?
Yes.
How old was he?
He was around 20 months when 22 months when we got the initial diagnosis. And we started services with him in early intervention at 24 months. But we had great difficulty getting services in terms of the amount of hours. We're researchers, so Boomer and I, we looked to see what was out there, and we knew that the target was really to try to do around 40 hours if we could. It's kind of difficult with a child that is that young.
Yeah.
But a lot of the local companies they could barely give us 10, 12 hours. It was very, very frustrating.
The major hospitals, there's a disjoint between the services, the capability set of the region and the major hospitals. Mass General, Boston Children's. They were at that time routinely prescribing the 40+ hours that these children need. And you walk out of the hospital and you call your early intervention, and they're telling you 10, 12 hours a week. Yeah. Our response was like, this is like putting a fire out with a squirt gun. Nobody shows that it's effective at all. And in fact, it's science shows now it's almost a waste of time because you don't have a critical amount of intervention, the number of hours, and the intensity
in that window.
So
yeah. And I love that you guys are saying this because we get so many families who will write in and say that they're still having these kinds of problems. Sometimes it's the flip that somebody has prescribed, 10 hours and they know that they need 40, but they're still having trouble getting access to services. And they feel as though it's some remote thing that they can't have access to. And I'm always reminding them that people have found a way. So tell us, how did you find the way to make sure that your child got the right amount?
Well, I think initially we were trying to think, okay, well, if we do ABA for 10 to 12 hours, then we do OT, then we do speech, then we put it all together, then maybe we can try to get up to that amount, but it really wasn't true ABA, and what we were finding is it was impossible to schedule. And what we didn't see is any cooperation between the providers in that made any sense.
In our region, it was a resource issue, and none of them were willing to add more staff to give you those 40 hours. They, unfortunately, I think the truth is they were maximizing, based upon the supervisor hours and the therapist hours, how many they would do. And we were begging them to say, can we take 15 to 20 hours from one service provider and do another 20 from another? And they just refused to do it. They would say, bureaucracy.
Eventually, we did kind of do that ourselves, but that didn't work either. So we had known about CARD from listening to Doreen Graham-Pochet speak at Autism One conferences, and I had called many offices to try to see about if they would open up in Boston.
Every office on the Eastern Seaboard. Called.
But that wasn't going to happen, and so we became a workshop family. And we hired our own therapists on Craigslist, and CARD gave us, basically a list of things we should look for, interview questions. They really helped us with all of that. But then we hired CARD, the supervisor in Chicago at that time, to fly out and do a 4-day training with our therapists. And we started a 40-hour program ourselves. And in the meantime, we were trying to mediate with the school because there had been some problems with the school. This is now moving ahead when Torrin is 3 years old. And things weren't working out well at the school at all. And, that's kind of how it all unfolded, how CARD now is part of our school program.
The thing overwhelmingly that we hear is how amazing you guys are, and that you got that attitude of, we can do this, we're just going to keep looking at problems as opportunities to find a way around them. That's what I'm hearing from you guys, that no matter what happened, you said, we'll figure that part out, but you knew what you need to have, and you made sure that you got it.
Yeah, well, I knew early on, believe me, there were a lot of... we were determined, but we were afraid. And, it was very sad because we just felt, helpless to some degree. And there wasn't a lot of people that could help us. So we just really felt like we needed to be able to put our head on our pillow at night and know that we had done everything that we possibly could to help our son, because he was so profoundly affected. And as we started this, for sure, we didn't know how we were going to pay for it. We didn't know how it was all going to happen. But as we started, things slowly fell into place, and we found very good therapists, very good people that were just dedicated to our family and our program. And they really saw, I think, the progress that Torrin was making, and that in itself became payment for some of them.
Absolutely.
We were fortunate in the caliber of people that came out and responded to our Craigslist ad and that Kerrie interviewed, turned out to be, jumped headfirst into working not only with children with special needs, but with the CARD methodology curriculum, and 3 out of the 4 of them now are ABA or BCBAs.
Awesome. 3 of our original.
And they just,
amazing. So you've changed their lives too. And at what point, now you have your daughter who's come along while all this is going on. You're relatively new parents again. And when did you realize that she also had issues?
So I'll take one question. Right as our son was in the process of being diagnosed, and that's a challenge as well, getting, you can wait 6 months to get that appointment for a doctor for a neuropsych in any major metropolitan area. So our daughter was born, and she immediately became a candidate in the Infant Sibling Project at Boston Children's. So she was being tracked and monitored from age 3 months on.
Awesome.
With updates and testing every 90 days. So although...
Plus, we had the luxury of having a card supervisor already working with our son with eyes on,
right.
so to speak.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, it was a completely different trajectory because she, from our standpoint, with our son being profoundly affected, you know, she appeared to be neurotypical. She appeared to be the shining star, being able to do certain things. She was a precocious reader very early on, identifying words, spelling, all of the above. But then we kind of learned that, you know, sometimes these things aren't positive. And along with Children's Hospital, with some of the test results, they indicated that she should have a full evaluation, and she was diagnosed. But, you know, she's, again, another example of this broad spectrum called autism, in which, you know, her challenges are very different. They're certainly, she has no trouble communicating, but they're more now in theory of mind, executive function.
Right.
You know, the good news is many of those things, she's had programs since a very young age, social skills learning with her therapists and with other you know, other students and friends. So she's made tremendous strides in overcoming those challenges. But
she still works on it every day.
Every day.
But you know, the other thing I wanted to say is, like, our kids, maybe because they're used to it, because they've been doing it forever, is they actually, for the most part, they really enjoy their sessions. They're fun. They're fun.
Yeah.
You know, they get a lot out of them in terms of work, but there is a ton of reward, a ton of play. They're interacting with us, you know, throughout them all the time. They get breaks, and you know, what kid doesn't want an adult playing games with them, you know?
Yeah.
Whenever they...
It's a great point, because it should be fun for them. That's the best possible case scenario. It's one of the things we tell parents to look for in an ABA program. If your child is excited when the therapists come to the door, then you know you're with the right people.
Yeah.
If they're dreading it, not so much.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to put, you know, kind of codify and put in writing for, you know, for anyone trying to do an IEP. But what's been paramount for us is the continuity, not only in the programming, but the therapists, because our son in particular, the teacher becomes the reward, making them happy and getting a chance to maybe to have, you know, whether it's tickles or, you know, just a moment, a break with their, you know, ABA therapist teacher. And it's amazing because you're right. They're excited when they show up.
That's great.
Not always. But.
And so, well, no, because everybody has a day, right? But how old are your kids now?
Our daughter is just turned 6, and our son will be 8 in just a few days. But to go along with what Boomer had said earlier, like, some of our daughter's delays in the beginning were strongly social related and missing key social cues. She's very literal. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is she's in a full day kindergarten class right now with minimal assistance, and she's the social butterfly of the class. So she's doing amazing. I mean, she still is. She still needs assistance in building concepts and reinforcing concepts, and inferring in terms of when reading comprehension, things like that. But overall, I would say if you saw her in a classroom, she would be indistinguishable. You wouldn't be able to pick out who she is in the class.
That's awesome.
And so we're, you know, that's truly exciting and rewarding for us, because, you know, autism is always going to be part of her life because of Torin. But hopefully she'll have a very, you know, inspiring story to be able to tell herself.
Absolutely. And in terms of Torin, he's made substantive gains as well?
Oh, for sure. I mean, he had a IQ of around 10 points below what would normally be considered the cutoff for mental retardation. And so imagine, you know, the school, we're sitting in an IEP meeting and the school's looking at this. They're like ready to basically, move him into basically a substantially separate classroom where it's kind of glorified babysitting. And, you know, we were able to, with Card's help, he learned over 250 sight words within a couple of years, which helped him with reading tremendously. But you can only do so much with sight words. And just this past March, he started sounding out words on his own. And that takes reading to a whole nother level with him. And so right now, he does not talk that much. He can talk, but he really only, requests or states his preferences. But he's in a regular education reading program in school. He does other stuff at home, but he's one of the best readers in the class. So that's really exciting because I didn't even think that was a possibility. We were just wanting bathrooming, at the beginning, we were so devastated. We just wanted bathrooming, home functional skills.
Understanding, verbal commands for danger. And,
and we can take him, he is the best behaved child. He just received an award at school for best behavior in his class and his work in reading. He's doing addition math equations. We can take him anywhere. We walks around the block. If he sees a moving car, he walks to the, he knows to get to the side. He follows all kinds of safety rules now with CARD's help. He's riding a bike and learning to turn right and left, so we can take him on the bike path and he can be in front of us.
That's great.
It's a miracle. It really is.
Well, your story is so inspirational, and I know you guys have things you have to go and do, but before we let you go, for families who are out there who have newly diagnosed children and they're not near any services and they feel left out, what advice would you give to them?
Call CARD.
Well, I think, so my advice is, probably similar, but depending upon age, they have early intervention services, is really, there are other parents who have done this before you, and learning from, oftentimes their problems are the same or even, potentially even worse. So just keep digging, and, it's not, the answers aren't, the answers are out there, and you just have to find out who has them. And it's, I think parent groups getting online, resources online, there's folks like Taka and others where you can kind of network and find other parents. And it just, it's amazing what's out there. And,
but I do want to say, CARD, even if CARD isn't in your area, CARD has a curriculum that parents can access. It's called Skills. Yeah. And it has an e-learning training program that can teach you how to do some of this stuff yourself. I've taken the e-learning. I've looked at Skills. Our kids use that. All of our therapists and even the school therapists are trained on e-learning initially. They do get some additional training, but that's a place to start. If you feel like there is nothing in your area, go look up CARD Skills. Go look at the e-learning. The e-learning is going to take you 40 hours, but you can even train relatives to help you out to do that.
Absolutely.
Or friends. And that's a place to start if you feel like you want a consistent program with a consistent curriculum, and don't do what we did where we were trying to mash together 3 different programs that weren't talking to each other, because that just became frustrating and a waste of our child's time. And when your child is diagnosed young, you don't want to waste a minute of their time. You want to get involved with a program that is going to be there for the long run.
Well, you guys are amazing. Your story is amazing, and it gives all of us so much hope. Mission Possible is exactly the right name for it, because it's all about what is possible, and you guys really bring it home what's possible. I thank you so much for your time today and sharing your story with us, and we'll have to have you back on to keep us posted about how things are going with both of your children. But they're beautiful, and you guys are beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I hope you guys have a great extended weekend. Are you getting a 4-day weekend this weekend?
We're trying to. Work gets in the way, but
yes.
We think so.
Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Shannon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Such an inspirational family. And, you know, you heard them talking about the e-learning, and you can access that at ibehavioraltraining.com. And of course, we talk about skills here all the time because I'm a big fan of skills as well. But I love that attitude of we're going to find the way to make it work, and we're not going to give up, right? We all have to adopt that attitude. Wonderful, wonderful family. We are going to take a short break and come back and have more information for you, so stick with us.
Torin. There's the two buddies.
I have a 7-year-old son who was diagnosed when he was 22 months old with PDD-NOS. That diagnosis was changed when he was 3 to a full autism diagnosis. There was a long period of time where he didn't sleep at all, and all night long would bang his head and whoop. It was because he was in pain but couldn't tell us.
We're going to back up, showing the speed and grace of this guy.
CARD was one of the only programs that said it doesn't really have to be this way forever. Your child will make progress. We can show you. Just give us time. We started services with CARD when my son was 3.5. Shortly thereafter, my daughter was also diagnosed and started her immediately with services. And I'm pleased to say that I think she's doing exceptionally well and will probably lose her diagnosis in the next 2 years. We started with 3 therapists with my son, and he had actually a 46-hour program. And thankfully, through some of the behavioral training that CARD helped us with, he is back in school.
1 + 9 = woohoo!
He's sleeping at night. CARD has a very robust program. Things that we're working on right now that we could never work on before is learning to play the piano, learning to ride his bike. It just has given us back our quality of life. They focus on our family. What do we need to do to make it more functional? So we're very, very happy with the services, and we feel like we owe everything to CARD because they kind of gave us back our life. I have nothing but love for CARD, for sure.
What a really incredible family, and what a great story. I just love their drive and determination. You know, that whole process of getting your child diagnosed and figuring out what services you're going to be able to get, what services you're going to be able to afford, what your life is going to look like. It's a very stressful time. But I really appreciated that they said get a parent support group. Of course, we always advocate that you make sure that you have a local support group and a more global support group. They mentioned TACA. We love TACA. We have them on the show on a regular basis. That's TACAnow.org. You can get a parent mentor at TACA that will help to help you to figure out your way. Just another resource, and there's no cost for that, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it's usually somebody in your area, and they take great pains to make sure that they match you up with somebody who has similar kinds of things going on, but they're a couple of years further down the road than you are. So absolutely love that. And she also mentioned, as I said, she mentioned e-learnings. So those e-learnings you can find at the Institute for Behavioral Training. It's ibehavioraltraining.com. And she mentioned skills. And you know I'm a huge fan of skills. I want to remind all of you that right now there is a sale on skills. It's a monthly subscription that you subscribe to, and you have access to all of the CARD curriculum. Emily's got the website there for you on the screen, and it's a monthly subscription, but right now if you sign up it's 20% off. But it's not just 20% off for this month, it's 20% off for the life of your subscription. So however long you get the subscription, it's 20% off. That's pretty amazing. So I want to encourage you to go and check out those sites. In just a second, we're going to take a look at this week's The A Word, but I want to give you a little bit of heads up about some of the things that are going on this week. I have this lovely game that's sitting on my desk.
and it's going to rattle because it has the real pieces in it. It's called Cornered, and this is a game that is being recommended. It has the Autism Speaks logo on it, and they're recommending it for autism. It's put up by Endless Games, and we're going to have Brian Turtle from Endless Games here with us on Thursday morning. This is a really fun game, can I tell you? We'll go into a little bit more description about it when Brian is here with us via Skype on Thursday. But we got this game, and we laid it out, and it's a puzzle-solving game, and there are lots of different ways that you can do it, but it was very interesting because we laid it out on the table, and my son and my husband and I were going to play. And everybody gets 5 cards or however many cards you decide to do, depending on the difficulty of the level you want it to be. And you have to lay them on the board in a way that matches what's on the board. So you really have to look at things in a very specific way. And it was fascinating to me because my son, I love games like this, but my son kind of went boom, 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 done. And because he put all 5 of them down, I think I had 3 down when he got 5 done, and I'd consider myself pretty good at those kinds of games. And my husband was sitting there with one going, I don't get it. And then my son and I both told him how we think of it in our heads. It was a fascinating conversation. And then we couldn't put it away. We just kept playing it. It was a great deal of fun. So we'll talk about that and more games that Endless Games has that are great for our kids on the autism spectrum. So all of that and more on Thursday. And then don't forget, tomorrow is Ask Dr. Doreen first, where you'll get an opportunity to ask Dr. Doreen Grandpichet questions in real time. And then our second hour tomorrow is Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And we have 3 different guests for you. It's a bit of a crazy day tomorrow, but all very exciting. We're thrilled about everything that's going on tomorrow. And then again, Brian Turtle from Endless Games on Thursday. So a lot of exciting stuff going on around here this week. We're going to take a break right now and go to this week's episode of The A Word. This is that ongoing documentary that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. Now, there are many different kinds of services that CARD provides, but one of them being that if you live close enough to a center, you can have therapists come to your home on a regular basis. CARD keeps the schedule. You have a supervisor who oversees the entire thing. That's what you're going to see with Jack Riley. What you just heard described by the Phillips family, when there wasn't a CARD office near them, what they signed up for at the time, it was called Workshop. Now it's called Remote Services. If you're interested in that, you can go to the CARD website and find out about that. That means that you have a supervisor from CARD. They're using the skills program, and they help you to train the people in your area. So there is no CARD office there, but the supervisor flies to where you are on a regular basis. And in the meantime, you hire the therapist. By the way, this in a lot of states is covered by insurance. And so you can find out more about that by going to the CARD website. But for Jack Riley, he lives close enough to here, to the center, that he can get the services in his home, and they are still CARD employees. That's really the biggest difference between those things. So take a look, though, what happens in an early intensive behavioral program and how many different things Jack Riley is working on. This is the A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Hi, Jessica. Jessica's daddy. That's right. Who's this? Who's this? Bobby. And who's that? Daddy.
Who's that?
Over there. Who's that? Susan.
And I totally think he's just aware of a lot of things now. People's names.
How's the behavior team going with the inflexibilities?
He's still a big control guy. He still wants it the way he wants it.
In sessions, he was very, he'd get very upset.
And he gets upset fast, like for reasons that didn't used to upset him. He gets upset fast, and then once he's upset, everything upsets him.
Were they really long?
But it was a good half hour, the whole tantrum, which is long for him. Mm-hmm. Really long.
Yeah.
And he would just get so upset.
Yeah, everyone tells us, it's not unexpected. He's 3 and blah, blah, blah. But
so we get it. We know it.
Still, it's harsh. Yeah, he's 3, but he's our 3-year-old.
Tell me a vehicle.
Good
job. Tell me another vehicle.
Airplane.
Airplane is a vehicle. Yay. Okay, 2 more. Okay. Tell me a food.
I can't eat food.
Pancake is a food.
Yeah.
Tell me another food. Tell me another one.
Food.
Cereal bar
is a food. Yeah.
But he's a zebra. Hey, Duck Ready.
Yes.
Good job. Tell me an animal.
What's is animal?
What's that?
Tell me one more time. What's an animal?
What's is animal? What's is
Rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros. Oh, okay, is an animal. Tell me another animal.
What's is
I
animal?
know. Tell me another one. Oh, here are your shoes. What animal is that?
Froggy.
Froggy is a what? No, frog is a
Arrow.
good. So tell me another animal.
What's is animal?
Rhinoceros is an animal, and tell me another one.
More pancake.
No, look at me. No,
More.
no, look at me.
What is animal?
There you go. Thank you. Pancakes are not animals, silly.
There's a clue from it.
More pancake.
Yeah, and I don't mind if he looks around to like get clues, get hints. That's totally fine. Yes, I've been running sessions a little bit more like that lately, just because his behaviors have been really high. Just like if we're jumping on the bed or dancing, I'll stop for a minute and ask him like 3 or 4 questions, and then we'll just keep dancing or whatever we're doing. Let me probe. There's some stuff around there.
What are you going to be probing?
Actions. So I just want to see if he already knows it, then I won't even bother introducing it. Give me kissing. Oh, good. What are the kids doing?
He's kissing.
Oh, they're kissing. Can you show me kissing? Oh, good job. Give me cleaning. Okay, good. What's the girl doing?
She's cleaning.
She's cleaning. Good job.
Water.
Okay, one more. Can I have it? One more. Give me crying. What's the baby doing?
She's baby.
What's she doing? What's the baby doing?
She's baby.
She's wah. She's crying.
She's crying.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll do crying.
He's kissing.
He's kissing. What about this one? What's she doing there?
She's cooking.
Oh, she's cooking. Okay. And what's this one? What's she doing?
She's crying.
Oh, okay. So basically, he knows all of them. All right, cool. All right. What are they doing?
She's dirty.
They're what?
There's cooking.
Oh, they're cooking. Good job.
What's that cooking? What's that cooking?
Mom is cooking?
What's that cooking?
Lots of cooking? Oh, okay. Cool. All right. All done. Thank you.
Hi guys, welcome back. For the month of May, I thought it'd be really neat if we made our own bird feeders. What's cool about it is once it's done and it's hung in your front yard, backyard, balcony, or whatever outdoor area that you have, your kids will be able to observe the bird feeder and tap when they see birds coming over and feeding from it, like, oh my gosh, oh, so exciting. Do you see that? Sorry, I got distracted. I'm just so excited about all the different birds I've been seeing now that I have a bird feeder hanging outside. Anywho, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are 2.5 cups of birdseed, 1/2 cup of boiling water, 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, a spatula, twine, scissors, wax paper, and cookie cutters. Alright, now that you got your materials, it's super easy. I have my boiling hot 1/2 cup of water, and I'm going to take my 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, and I'm going to pour them in and stir it. The reason I pour it in the water first all by itself is to make sure that the gelatin dilutes really well, and I can stir it up real nicely. Now that it's been all stirred together, I'm going to take this liquid and pour it into the birdseed, making sure to scrape up all the gelatin that we diluted. Now I'm just going to stir it all up. Okay, now that this is all mixed up, I'm going to take my wax paper and put it on my table just so I don't make a mess. And then I'm going to take my cookie cutter and lay it down. I'm also going to take a piece of string and cut it, about 6 inches long. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the cookie cutter halfway full with our birdseed mixture. And I'm going to take my string, fold it in half, I'm going to place it in the center. This way you can hang this up once it's done and dry. Okay, now that it's full, I'm just going to pack it in. So now that this is all compacted, it's going to take about 6 hours for the gelatin to get completely hard. If you take it out too soon, the whole thing's going to fall apart. So let's wait a little bit, and I'll see you guys in a few moments. All right, it's been 6 hours now, so let's see if this little guy worked out. So I'm just going to pull him up and pop him out, okay? And here's my finished bird feeder. All you have to do now is hang it outside and wait for all the great things you're gonna see. Like, oh, I see another bird. This is so exciting. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the activity and keep me up to date with all the different birds that you and your child see outside your property. Until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. On Tuesdays, it's our very special thrill to have a segment called Making Room with Evelyn. And Evelyn Gould joins us on that day. She's the Evelyn in the making room. It's very fun. Can I tell a funny story about when I first started working here?
Yeah.
Because you have this beautiful accent, and we have 2 Evelyns who work here, and then there's Evelyn, and they're all spelled exactly the same way. And I was trying very hard to be particular and not call you Evelyn and not call them Evelyn. I still, from time to time, get that messed up and send emails to the wrong person. But I say it in a very deliberate way, so Evelyn. And so... But I was talking about all the exciting things that were happening at work every day that I would go home and talk to my husband, and I would say, and Adele said this, and it's fascinating, and then Evelyn said this. And finally he said to me, you've only been working there a short time. Why do you dislike her so? And I said, what are you talking about? I just adore Evelyn. She's wonderful. And he said, then why are you calling her Evil Lynn?
Okay.
You thought your name was Lynn, and that I had dubbed you Evil Lynn, and because you were
Man and the Masters of the Universe. Remember that?
Apparently.
I used to get that all the time as a child, but I thought it was kind of cool. I didn't mind that.
So it was okay for you. But I just he says, why do you dislike her so? And I couldn't, I was like, what are you talking about? Evil Lynn. But it's a beautiful, beautiful name. And we love that you come here to teach us how to make room for all things. That all of us have things that no matter if we have a child who's on the spectrum, or if you're on the spectrum, or everybody's completely neurotypical and you showed up here because you find this so fascinating, that we all have stuff that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And it's easy for all of us to get in a moment where we're only seeing the positive or only seeing the negative when there's a whole lot of stuff going on at the same time. So we're thrilled to have you here, and welcome back to the show, because it's been a couple of weeks since we've had you on. And for the first time today, we've been promising everybody that we were going to talk about some training that happened here at CARD. It was a couple of months ago now. And we had Dr. Coyne on the show when she was here doing the training. We kept saying, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about this. And we finally have a couple of minutes to talk about it. So tell us what the training was about.
The training was for the top level clinicians and trainers and the top level staff really at CARD, and it was in acceptance and commitment therapy, and specifically it was acceptance and commitment therapy in the context of working with parents and supporting staff. And so we spent the week discussing stress and how people deal with stress and techniques for better dealing with stress and a better understanding and dealing with all the stuff that's going on in your mind all the time and emotions that come up that are very difficult to deal with and the stuff that can get in our way in terms of doing what really matters. So for parent, that might be like all this stuff that gets in the way of you parenting the best way that you can in that moment, or being the parent that you really want to be, and being fully involved in your child's program or participating in your child's program, and coping with having a kid with autism and all that brings. And for staff, it means coping with all the challenges that come up in terms of doing helping work constantly for long periods of time, and avoiding burnout and compassion fatigue, and how to be able to take perspectives, different people's perspectives, and be more empathetic and effective when you're working with clients, whilst also having all this stuff going on of your own that you're possibly bringing to that situation.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in the phrase, you can't give away what you don't have. So if we stop and look at the food chain here, and we got a child who needs some intervention, and the child is stressed, and then you got the parent who's stressed and who's trying to help the child to be less stressed. But the parent can't give away what they don't have. And then you've got a therapist who's going to help the parent to figure out how to be de-stressed and how to talk to the child, how to be effective, and how to have the child, help them with their stress. And I think as a parent, when therapists would come in and work with my child, they're very good at looking like they're completely composed and that nothing's going on when the child is having a tantrum. They're just absolutely, they look like it's all okay and everything is all right. I can't imagine that that's the complete truth, though.
No, I think there are some people, there are some amazing people in the world who just don't get stressed. As I find that really hard to believe, but apparently there are. And I know.
I don't know them.
Cecilia's husband. Cecilia is the director of our training department, and she tells me all the time, well, Mark just doesn't get stressed. He just doesn't get stressed. Apparently not. So there are some people who that probably is how they're just totally calm and fine. But a lot of the times that isn't all that's going on. And speaking for myself, I know I've worked with some very, very challenging clients, children and parents and other staff members even. And in the moment, I might be very effective at dealing with, I was actually very good at dealing with extremely challenging behavior when I worked in a children's home and a residential school, and these were like the most aggressive kids, teenagers, and I was very good at it, but I realized after a while that I would come home on my days off and just cry. And I was working at this level of adrenaline that on the surface it looked like I was very calm and organized and dealing with these situations and very effective, but it was really taking a toll on me outside. When I went home, I would bring that home with me, and not just like the adrenaline come down, but thoughts about like these kids that I was working with and what their families were going through. And also, it's hard not to sometimes take things personally. They're not personal. Like when a kid is aggressing at you or tantruming, you do start to take things personally sometimes. So I think you're right. I think that sometimes it's not the whole picture. And it's also like those therapists have their own lives and they have other stuff possibly going on.
Absolutely.
They're trying to put that on hold as well.
And so I love this idea that ACT,
acceptance commitment therapy, which is just so effective at being able to cope. Right? It's not that you're trying to eliminate those things, but you're trying to cope with all the things that you have to cope and still be effective. Is that a pretty good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's like making room and accepting what you can't change and making space for those things and letting them be there, and then freeing yourself up. Rather than struggling with all your thoughts and feelings, you're freeing yourself up to be able to do what needs to be done in that moment. So whether that's like doing the best job that you can, or being the best parent, or being the best employee, it's doing what needs to be done and moving you towards what really matters to you. So your values, it's values driven action.
Love that, because there are ways of coping that are not your values. I mean, we all have those things that we do. We go, well, I need to do that because I'm coping with it, but it doesn't go hand in hand with your values.
Yes, not necessarily. Sometimes we can do a lot of things that are very effective in the short term, but in the long term, in terms of moving us to where we really want to be, it's not really helpful.
Yes, and then we ultimately, I think for a lot of us, maybe not all of you, but personally, then we beat ourselves up about, oh, well, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, needed to, right? And also not part of being effective. So I love the idea that that you started with training the uppermost staff. Because if you can't give away what you don't have, and if we're training everybody to be as effective as possible, then, train the uppermost staff first. And so you had Dr. Coyne and a couple of other people come here, and you were doing a training, and it was a week-long training here. So what kinds of things?
Intensive.
Very intensive. And I heard all kinds of amazing things, but what kinds of specific things were you working on?
So in terms of so I also, since then with Cecilia, have done a training with some of our other top level management in ACT, and specifically what we were trying to focus on was helping people recognize stress and signs of stress and burnout, and then thinking about what they value and what kind of employee they want to be, and why do they come to work every day, and what are they trying to help these parents do, and what's really meaningful for them, and then to learn some strategies for helping the perspective taking. So it really helps when you're in a very intense situation with somebody to be able to think about where they're coming from and why they're saying what they're saying, and also how to minimize bringing your own stuff to those interactions. So we were focusing very much on difficult interactions, and we talked a lot about that in the training, the first training as well. I don't know if any of that makes sense. So for example, we know that the helping professions suffer a great deal of burnout, and compassion fatigue, I think, is the common.
It's a great phrase.
The common name, and much higher rates of burnout and stress and difficulty than, say, other professions where you're not directly trying to care for people. So social workers, for example, have a lot of these types of issues, and so we really. And then, of course, then they're not able to do the work that really matters to them.
Right.
And they can't, like you say, they can't care for the people that they're trying to care for because they're kind of overwhelmed by their own stuff. So we're really looking at, how can we help our staff, retain staff, stop that burnout process so that they have more to give to our families, and then hopefully they're able to help those families deal with their own stuff better.
Yeah, because it has to be said that a big part of this equation is funding, right? And we've been working on the funding thing, but now that there's funding, we see that clearly the problem all along was also that there aren't enough trained people who are available to do all the hours that all of our kids needed. That if the best of all possible worlds, if they suddenly said, okay, we found the funding source that is unending, and we can fund every single child in the world's program for ABA, there wouldn't be enough people to deliver that ABA. So the people who are doing it, we want to make sure that they are keeping themselves as effective as possible and able to do their job as long as they possibly want to, and that it's reinforcing to them. I think that's a really good plan.
Yeah. And, it is natural that if you have families, having a child with autism brings so many challenges in it. So you automatically have a family that's dealing with a lot of stress, and then if you add another very burnt out therapist or clinician into that mix, it might be really difficult to get an effective relationship going, and then it's very hard for the clinician to get the parents to do what they need them to do. And because it's not that parents sometimes, so parents can understand what you're asking them to do, and they might believe in what you're asking them to do, but if they have a lot of emotional stuff going on, it can be very difficult to actually put it into action. So just like we all have stuff where we know we should do X, Y, and Z, and we just don't do it, and we can be like, I don't know why I don't just do these things that I need to do. And so for our parents, like, they can know what it is they're supposed to do, they can show us what they're supposed to do, but it's very difficult in these moments when they're having these interactions with their kids, and all this stuff is showing up for them, these emotions, these thoughts, these really unhelpful thoughts, and they just want to make it better, and it can be very difficult to do what needs to be done. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And it's something that, I'll be honest with you, when I was going through GEM's early intervention, I was so, at the beginning of it especially, I was so underslept and so overwhelmed and such a hurting unit. Like, everything about me hurt. And everything about me, I think, if I was going to be completely honest, I would say I was defensive. I felt, we had so much to fight for early on that I felt like, and I talk about this all the time on the show, that I say to people, get your armor on, gird your armor, and get your Norma Ray on. That's my phrase. And I just felt like I had to fight. But sometimes I didn't even know what and who I was fighting because I was that level of tired.
Absolutely.
I knew there was stuff I was supposed to be doing, but and I know that sometimes that therapists would ask me to do something, but I felt like I needed to do something, but to get to what they needed me to do was sometimes the hardest thing to do, just because of what I was bringing to the table. It wasn't intentional. If you had said to me in that moment, Shannon, this is what you were doing, I would have been like, what are you talking about? I see it now, how hard, but I was a hurting unit. And yet, the thing that I wanted the most, which was to help my child, sometimes I was getting in my own way.
Exactly.
And so I love the fact that you guys are really taking this on for parents, and that you're taking it on for yourselves first, so that you're not coming in and saying, well, you need to manage your stress because...
Or you need to just do it.
Or just do it. Suck it up.
One of the problems is that we're trying to educate our clinicians to have a better understanding of how parents can get in their own way, or how the way that they're coping with their emotions and what's going on in their heads and their thoughts about everything, how that gets in the way of them being able to do what the clinician needs them to do. If they don't have an understanding, then they kind of get in this like no-win situation where the clinician's saying they just need to do this, and the parents not doing it, and they're like, well, they just won't do it. So what do we do? And they kind of don't know where to go from there. So we're trying to give them some tools that they can help the parents be more effective and to feel better, like just to deal with the whole situation better and feel better supported.
And so it's a wonderful thing, and we're going to continue talking about this, but we've had a question come in, and I want to take a break so that Evelyn can have a chance to read the question about special ed teachers burning out. I haven't read the whole thing yet. But so we're going to take a break and stick with us more with Evelyn Gould after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I can't even say what we're doing here. I was just talking about how I'm a little bit foggy these days. Welcome back to Autism Live. This is where we are, and we're here with Evelyn Gould. And this is called Making Room with Evelyn. We're talking about how we make room for all the possibilities that are out there and for all the things that we're feeling and all the things that we have going on, and still finding the way to accept that and be as effective and as efficient as we want for the things that matter to us. What a concept. What a really big concept. Now, putting it into action. A couple of brief things. We've had some people write in. Somebody wants to know, Shannon, have you ever heard of Paula Cluth? She's an expert about mainstreaming our kiddos. I wonder if she could be one of your guests some days. I would love to. I'll get in contact. And the person goes on to write, I've learned a lot from her book, You're Going to Love This Kid, which I've actually heard of that book, but I don't have it. So we will look into having her on. Now, the bigger, longer comment / question. Hi, Shannon and Evelyn. My question is, have you ever heard that special education teachers burn out in just 2 years? If this is so, I'm very worried about the school I'm sending my son to next year that has teachers who have taught there for many years. I used to teach kindergarten, at an inner school, and I know I saw burnout teachers all around me. I got out after 7 years before I got burned out. Any thoughts on this? I forget where I heard that statistic of the 2-year special education teacher burnout. Sorry. And I will say too, because I used to teach college, and then after 9/11, I went into an inner city school and taught for 3 years. And I will be honest with you that because part of it was that I was pregnant and didn't have a good pregnancy in the middle of it, I got to burn out much quicker than 2 years. And I think that when we talk about averages and statistics, it's the same thing when people talk about our kids, right? Well, if you've met one special ed teacher, then you've met one special ed teacher. I think it's probably different for everyone, but the possibilities to burn out are there.
I don't know that statistic, but it doesn't surprise me in that a lot of the special ed teachers, first of all, they have... like you said, there's going to be a wide range of experiences, but that is a very challenging role, and you're likely to not have the resources to manage this many kids with all their individual needs, and I can see that would be a burnout situation. I know that I have a colleague, but like a person that I've been in contact with, who is at Harvard, and he's actually in the process of trying to roll out some ACT training in a school up there. And he's also taking like a top-down approach with the hope that this will affect the parents and the children in the school and helping the teachers avoid the burnout situation. And I imagine that probably is likely to help a lot. But of course, most times that type of support isn't in place in schools. It just isn't the type of training that people are given. Teachers are not given training in stress management or or emotional burnout.
Which is mind-boggling that they're not, because they should. But there's a lot of things that should be that aren't yet. So we all have reasons to be working towards things, but. It's, a burnout is something that we should all expect is going to happen at some point. If our children are going to go to school for 12 and 13 years, we're going to run into a burnt out teacher at some point. But we don't need to be afraid of it, right? If we practice ACT on the idea of being afraid of this, we make room for the possibility that that's going to happen, but there's much more that we can make room for as well, right? I mean, one of the things that I would say is that if you're looking for, and if you see signs of a burnout teacher, that there are things that you can do, that you can, try to be more reinforcing to the teacher, make sure that you personally are remembering to reward them, but you can also talk to the people, the support staff. You would never want to, if you feel that a teacher has severe burnout in your child's classroom, and listen, I hear horror stories about this with kids who are not on the spectrum on a daily basis. The teacher who says, nobody's allowed to ask me questions today. Right? Somebody told me about this the other day. Their child came home and said, I didn't finish this work in class. Why? Because the teacher stood there and all the kids said that the teacher said, I'm done for the day. Nobody's allowed to ask me any more questions. That's a teacher who's having a burnout moment. I don't know whether it's, pervasive, but that day, that's burnout. But, you can talk to superiors, whether it's, the principals, sometimes there's a dean at the school, somebody at the district level, but you can talk to people about it. But what kinds of things, what would you say would be signs that a teacher has burnout?
Well, I think if your kid's coming home telling you things like that, that's something to be aware of, although that's not necessarily a sign of burnout, but I think it's difficult if you're not in the school to know what's going on with the teacher, but you could look for signs in general in the school, I think. Like, does the school appear to have like a welcoming, warm, supportive atmosphere? I know that's kind of vague, but you probably will get a sense when you go into a school. Do the teachers seem happy? Do they seem like they're friendly to each other? Do they welcome you with a smile, or are they like rushing past you looking really stressed? Probably that's going to give you a better idea of the likelihood of the teachers getting to burnout. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. We have this week in our school open house, and they have one at the beginning of the year and they have one at the end of the year. And the one at the end of the year, I take great note. Like, we will go to my child's classroom and we'll be there for the little presentation, and then we'll get out as quick as we can. And we'll go to the classrooms for the next grade up, and if we have time, the grade above that. Because I like to look at what's happening at those events. Like, how proud are they of their kids' work? Right. And how are they interacting with the parents? And I get to stand back. I've got no baggage with this teacher. I get to stand back and look. And then, you know what I especially love to see? When kids from older grades come to visit that teacher and go, hi.
Exactly.
I wanted to come and see, I remember when we did that. That's the teacher I want.
Yeah. And so that kind of idea of approachability and availability. So if you notice that the teachers are available to parents coming and talking to them, or to older kids coming and talking to them, they're kind of open and welcoming of contact, and they're not avoiding you or not responding to you, that's probably a sign too.
You know what else I notice when I do this, because we've been doing this for years now, is that I'll go and I'll hang out and I'll walk around and look at the pictures and things, and I notice how long it takes the teacher in that classroom to notice that my husband and I are in the classroom. Because if they don't say, who are you here for, fairly quickly, that's a bad sign for me too. And I know it's a huge generalization, but I'm just telling you from my mom gut, because the teacher who knows every single family member who's there and is actively greeting people and saying, I haven't met you, are you sometimes they'll mistake us for the grandparents. That's okay, but if they just let us look and don't ask who we're there for me, that's a negative, because they're not as interested in the parents. And I need a teacher who's interested in working with us. Not everybody needs that, but I do.
A teacher who's going to be like, so what are you working on at home? Okay, here's what I can send you to help with you at home, and here's what I'd like for you to work on at home to help us here in the classroom.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, a lot of the times when someone's very, very stressed or you have a lot going on, and I'm thinking about like what you were saying earlier about when you were in that hurt space, that when you're in that space and someone else approaches you, it doesn't really matter what they're saying to you. It's perceived as a demand, or it can feel like a demand, and that can, so with those teachers that are burned out, if you're approaching them, they're going to possibly perceive any interaction with the parent as like, oh God, they're asking me to do something else, like an extra demand that you can't handle. Just like when a therapist comes to you and you're extremely stressed and they're saying, we need you to do this, it's like, this is just another thing to make me feel like I'm a terrible parent and I can't do anything and it's too much and it's too hard. And I
go, and on what planet is that happening? You want me to take data on that?
Exactly.
On what planet is that?
So if you put yourself in the teacher's a teacher who's burned out is in that place, that they're in the same place. So when you, so it is, I think if you look for those kinds of signs, like is the teacher, if the teacher's not, is kind of like, don't ask me for stuff and don't approach me, then that's probably not a good sign.
Yeah. But realize that there's recourse, and it's not necessarily a negative thing. If you, having taught, and you said that you taught kindergarten, that if, depending on the principal, of course, every school is different, but if it's a good principal and you go and say, hey, I'm concerned about X, Y, or Z, that usually a good principal then will swoop in and make sure that that teacher is getting the support that they need. If it's not a good principal and they're not getting the good support, you'll see it very quickly, because the first thing that they'll do is offer to move your child to another classroom, which is not the worst thing. If you feel like your child's teacher has burnout and is not going to accommodate your child, then it might be appropriate to move settings. There are worse things that happen.
Yeah, but then, like you said, that's not necessarily an approach that's looking at how fixing the issue within the school or supporting that teacher.
Yes, it isn't.
It is.
But in that moment, I revert back to parent. I'm concerned for that teacher because I'm a human being.
I'm not saying that you've got to do. You've got to. Yes, I'm agreeing that you should. Yes. It should be about your child. But my concern, I guess, what I'm saying is my concern would be if they just moved your child to another classroom and just were like, but we're still going to leave that burnt out teacher there. That's an alarm bell for me, because what's to say that my other teacher, the rest of the teachers in the school aren't burnt out? So I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, but one of the things that I think and hear from, going back to the original question, is that your comment is that a bunch of the teachers at the school that you're going to have been there teaching for a long time. That's actually a really good sign. And you know this from having taught before, that when there's big turnover at a school and somebody coming and going and coming and going, it's usually a sign that the teachers aren't having their needs met. Not always. I mean, people are young and they go and do other things, or they go and have babies, but if there's continual turnover, not a good sign. So when you have a core staff of people who have been working together, and there's not a lot of turnover, generally that, to me, suggests that there's a high probability that there's some support there to make sure that they're treated like human beings, and that they make room for them to have a bad day. Everybody has a bad day, but that they're supported in their jobs with resources.
Think if you pair that with, if you go into the school and you look for all the things that you were just talking about, Shannon, and what we were saying about that supportive atmosphere and being welcomed and them approaching you or being available, like if you pair that with staff that have been there for a long time, then probably you're on to a good thing.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for being here today and for helping us out and answering some of these questions. And we should mention too, so you've done now 2 phases of this training, where there was the in-house training, and now you've done an additional training, and that we're hoping that at some point down the road, I'm hoping at some point down the road, it gets to the point where parents
and it will for sure
can sign up to have this training, and we can talk about that more on another week, about what that looks like for parents. And if parents want to know more about ACT, I know you've recommended a couple of books in the past. What would you recommend right now?
There's a book called The Reality Slap. I think that's probably the best book for parents initially. Actually, Russ Harris, who's the author of that book, he has a child with autism, and he in the book talks a little bit about his son being diagnosed and how he coped with that through using ACT. And then he outlines some really wonderful like self-compassion work and other things that can be good tools for parents. And just it's a really short little book, so it's very easy to read and very easy to kind of get through. And he has a little bit in there actually in the back about ABA services and his experiences and recommendations for that too.
We had another question that came in. Have you got just one more minute to stick around? Shannon and Evelyn, does a cluttered classroom environment, i.e. posters covering every square inch of wall space, little organization of materials, and just chaos instead of order, any thoughts on the best educational environment set up for our kids? I want to start out by saying that I am sometimes, in some points in my life, I'm incredibly organized, and other points in my life, I'm completely like a clutter, crazy person. I can come to your house and I can organize your garage and give you like organization tips that will blow your mind. But my garage, if you saw it, you would be appalled and run screaming from whatever room you're in. And I really believed as a teacher that being organized was like, the number one thing I could do for my kids. And when I was about to put my son into kindergarten, they were asking us to move schools, and I did not want to move. I kicked and I screamed, and I all but pulled my hair out. I threatened to chain myself to the other building. I relented on it. But they asked me to go look at this kindergarten teacher's room and to meet her. And I went in her room, and I hope she'll forgive me for saying this, but there was stuff everywhere, right? And there were piles of things. And I walked out and I said, this will not work, kids. I'm just going to tell you right now, my son cannot go to this classroom because Jem was a swiper. If there was stuff piled on a table, I said, he's going to swipe stuff. Oh, it's going to be this won't work. And they wore me down over time, and I had another opportunity to meet her, and I really, really liked her. And I met all these parents who said, this is the best kindergarten teacher you're ever going to meet. And I kept going, she's got piles of stuff. How good can she be if she's not that organized? And there was colorful stuff all over. I said, it's a sensory nightmare, you guys. This isn't going to work. Short story made too long already. He did have this teacher. And can I tell you, if I could bottle her and give her to everybody, and my child never swiped anything off of one of her counters because he respected her too much. He learned so much as a kindergartner. I did not think that he was going to be able to be included when he went off to first grade, and he was. I would love to make an award to give to this woman. But I know that I had a big reaction and said things and probably made her life difficult because I was like, she's disorganized. Yeah. She's not.
I think it's really hard. I wouldn't be able to answer that question because I think it really does depend on the teacher. Yeah. And it can be a sign of many different things. Right. I could, even speaking from like working as a therapist, I know I'm a super organized, tidy person. When I work with kids, I tend to tidy up as I go along and have the kids helping me tidy up as I go along. But I've gone into sessions when I've been a consultant and there's just stuff everywhere and the therapist is like not cleaning up anything. And my immediate reaction is like, how can you work like this? Right. But they're really excellent therapists. They're very good and they're doing amazing work. And it's just the way they work. I can't work in that chaos.
And the kid is working in both environments.
And both environments. So it really does depend on what the teacher's doing. Yeah. More.
And honestly, as a parent, I go, about that. But when I think about it, as somebody else's child, I go, what a great opportunity for that child because they're working in a messy environment, they're working in a clean environment, which means they're not going to have inflexibility about either one of those things like me. Because I'd be like, how can you make that? It won't work if you do that, right? But by doing that, the kids get used to, and they're a little bit more flexible.
Obviously it can also be not so good a thing. So it really is individual. You had a very good teacher who was able to work on those things with your kid. But, go in and observe the teacher and observe the class and what's happening, and that's a better indicator because it could be also a sign of less favourable circumstances depending on what way the classroom works.
Yeah. But reserve your judgment until you see them in action. Yeah. I think that's the key. Okay. Wonderful. Fascinating. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to say goodbye to Evelyn, but we're going to be back to finish out the show, so stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, they wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We had a couple of questions come in that one in particular that I see, there are some questions that are right for some person, one person more than another, and this one is one of mine to take on. So the question is, do you have any advice for families trying to follow a GFCF diet and not living near Whole Foods or Trader Joe's? Yes, I do, actually. First of all, one of the things that I want you to consider is that
if the goal is for our children to be healthy, first and foremost, right? And that part of that, you've determined that you really want to give the GFCF and potentially GFCF SF soy-free diet a good shot. I know a lot of people who say, well, I just don't know how healthy that is. Well, let me just say this. If any of us lived on only prepackaged food, that wouldn't be the goal, right? No matter what diet you're on. So keep in mind that a lot of the things that you want to do on a GFCF diet are going to be fresh foods, fresh whole foods that you're going to be able to get to a certain degree, like vegetables, and it's the grains that are going to be the hard thing where you're going to have to special order those. But the fruits and the vegetables and the meats that you're going to get are things that you're going to be able to get wherever you are. You're going to be picky about them, and I would encourage you to talk to whoever your local grocer is and say, hey, where's your organic section? And bug them. Why is it so small? Right? Now, you don't have to be organic to be GFCF, but if we're getting our kids healthy, you know what I'm saying? So, but then there's a portion of products that you want to have that are the convenience things, and your grains. Your grains are things that you're going to want to get, and you're not going to be able to get them at your local corner grocery store. Although, if you ask your local corner grocery store, you will be surprised at what they will be willing to put in. Because if they know somebody will buy it, then there is the likelihood that you can get it. Now, when we went to Iowa a lot last year because my mom was ill, and at her local grocery store, giving you an example, they have a nice co-op natural food store that's similar to a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's. And I got a lot of great products there that I could go and shop there. But I will be honest with you that I got more products that were GFCF at the local grocery store because there were a group of parents who asked and said, can you put in a section, here are the products that we want to get. And I found things that I can't even get at my Whole Foods or Sprouts or Trader Joe's. So be willing to talk to that local grocer. And until you know which products you want, there are several online entities that you can order from. And one in particular that we met that I wasn't familiar with until we went to the Gluten-Free Expo. It's called Well Amy, W-E-L-L Amy, A-M-Y. Check it out because everything that we saw at that expo, they carry at their store, and they were having, the difficulty with buying things online is that shipping can be really expensive, and I don't know if it was just for the expo, but they were having a really good deal on shipping. So I would definitely check them out. They're not the only one online, but I was amazed at how many things that they do carry. So that's Well Amy. And we're actually going to have her, because I was so pleased with it, we're going to have her on the show on the 30th. So if you want to catch that show. But you can special order things, and if you stop and think about it, how nice would it be to not have to go to 3 different grocery stores, right? And spend the gas and the time to do that, but to be able to order something and have it delivered to your door. So that kind of an opportunity you can get from something like Well Amy. And then you just want to shop around the outsides of your local grocery store. We got to meet Anna from Breads from Anna. I'm telling you, if you have not tried their banana bread and you've not tried their pumpkin bread, you are missing out. There is a little bit of crystallized honey in it, so if your child has a difficulty with honey, then you'll be excluded from that. And it is a mix that you add eggs to, but I've done it with an egg substitute. It's phenomenal. Did I say phenomenal? I meant phenomenal. I give that to people all the time at our house and don't tell them that it's gluten-free. And you know what? They don't know. That's how good it is. It's really incredible. Best thing I think I've ever tasted that was gluten-free. Hands down. The banana bread and the pumpkin bread. And you know how I got introduced to breads from Anna? Not because I found it at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. My mother got it at her grocery store and said, hey, here's this thing you might want to try. So don't leave out your local grocer. Talk to them. Tell them what you're doing. And then if you have your local support group and they're shopping at the same store, tell them. When I want a product in my local grocery store, I tell 4 or 5 moms, they go and ask for it too. You got 6 people asking for it, they'll carry it. In any case, we're pretty much out of time. I want to remind you that tomorrow, ask Dr. Doreen, and Emily's showing you all the different ways that you can get in touch with us here. But so ask Dr. Doreen. We can take your questions now. There are still some questions that we didn't get to from today, and a lot of questions left from last week, but that's okay. You know, we'll get to as many of them as we can. But if you've got a question, now's a great time to send your question in for Dr. Doreen tomorrow. Also, thanks to our mom watching from India. So thrilled to have you with us today. And glad to know that you're here. Also tomorrow, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy Alspaugh Jackson will be here, and we've got so many wonderful guests. I know that we're going to have one of the ladies from Cox Communication who's going to be here with us. And Cox Communication is sponsoring that Inclusion Films camp in San Diego this summer for military kids and their siblings. Amazing. And want to encourage you that wherever you are in the United States and in Canada, Joey Travolta does those inclusion camps, and I just hear such great things about them. I can't wait for my son to go one. So anyway, all that and more. And then don't forget, on Thursday from Endless Games, Brian Turtle is going to be with us talking about games, like the cornered one I showed you, and some more. Really promising. Okay, we're out of time. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.